misty roads of Japan, there's a terrifying tale that haunts the streets, one that sends a shiver down the spine of anyone who dares drive at night. It is the legend of the headless rider, a ghostly figure of a motorcyclist, forever cursed to ride the roads without a head. The story begins with a tragic accident that occurred years ago. A young man speeding down a desolate road on his motorcycle was unaware of the danger ahead. In the dead of night, someone, no one knows who, had stretched piano wire across the road, the thin, almost invisible strands ready to catch the unsuspecting. The rider, unable to see the wire in time, crashed into it at full speed. The wire snapped tight, decapitating him instantly, his head flying off as his body crumpled to the ground. His motorcycle slid to a stop, the engine sputtering its final breath in the silence of the night. But death was not the end for this rider. As the legend goes, the rider's ghost now haunts the road where he perished, a headless figure speeding through the night on his motorcycle. The faint sound of revving engines fills the air as he approaches, and those who have encountered him report seeing a rider in a dark helmet and leather jacket, his hands gripping the handlebars with unnatural force. But when they get close enough, the rider's neck is eerily empty, no head to be found. The headless rider is said to seek vengeance on those who dare drive too fast or too recklessly, as he once did. Many have reported seeing him in their rear view mirrors, gaining speed until he's almost upon them, only for him to vanish just before impact. But some unlucky few have been followed, and on rare occasions they've felt the chilling brush of a headless figure passing by, a warning to never forget the deadly cost of speed. So, if you find yourself alone on a lonely, dark road in Japan and you hear the roar of a motorcycle behind you, be wary. The headless rider may be catching up to you, ready to claim another victim for his endless ride through the night. We dive into the unsettling tale of the colander lie detector, a strange and eerie urban legend. Settle in, relax, and let this mysterious story guide you gently into sleep. An eerie urban legend from the 1960s speaks of a chilling interrogation method used by police or army investigators. It began with a crude yet unsettling setup. A colander, typically used for straining pasta, repurposed into a nightmarish piece of equipment. The investigators would place this everyday kitchen item onto the head of a suspect, but its sinister transformation didn't end there. Wires connected the colander to a photocopier, creating the illusion of advanced technology. In a dimly lit interrogation room, the suspect would sit nervously as the investigators loomed over them, watching intently. The tension was palpable, the walls closing in as the suspect was bombarded with questions. The investigators' eyes would dart back and forth between the suspect and the machine, waiting for the first crack in their story. Each time the suspect answered, the photocopier would whir to life, spitting out a fresh sheet of paper. The sound of its mechanical churning filled the room, amplifying the sense of dread. If the answer was deemed acceptable, the machine remained silent, offering a brief respite. But if the investigators found the response suspicious or dishonest, the copier would hiss and clunk, printing a single sheet with a damning message. "He's lying." calendar and photocopier into terrifying tools, blurring the line between reality and fiction. Some say the interrogators used this method for years, laughing behind closed doors at how easily their victims were broken by the sight of a kitchen utensil on their head. But as with any legend, the line between truth and myth is thin. Stories began to circulate of suspects who couldn't handle the pressure, of minds unravelling as they became trapped in a game where the stakes felt life or death. Whispers of the colander lie detector persist, and while it's easy to dismiss it as a bizarre tale from the past, one can't help but wonder if, somewhere in a dark corner of the world, the machine is still being used, waiting to catch its next victim in its web of fear and deception. In the shadowed realms of rural lore, where the line between jest and truth blurs, the legend of cow tipping haunts the fields and farmyards. Said to be a moonlit escapade for thrill-seeking youths, this bizarre activity involves the stealthy approach towards an unsuspecting cow, fast asleep standing upright in the darkness, and the sudden, forceful shove to topple the massive beast over for mere sport. But beyond the surface of this seemingly harmless prank lies a more chilling narrative, whispered among those who know the countryside's true face after dark. As the legend goes, in a secluded farming community, enveloped by the embrace of ancient woods and forgotten roads, cow tipping became more than just a reckless pastime. It morphed into a ritual of fear. The teens of this town, driven by boredom and the intoxicating rush of defiance, would venture out into the fields under the guise of night, their laughter slicing through the silence like a cold wind. But there was one night that turned their mischievous jaunt into a nightmare. As the group approached a familiar pasture, the moon hung low and ominous, bathing everything in a ghostly silver hue. The cows stood like monolithic statues in the mist, their breath forming clouds in the crisp air. Emboldened by the eerie night, the teens singled out a large, shadowy figure at the edge of the field. With a mix of exhilaration and alcohol-fueled bravado, they crept up to the sleeping cow. However, as they laid their hands on the creature, ready to push, the cow did not budge. Instead, it slowly turned its head, revealing not the docile eyes of a farm animal, but the glowing red orbs of a creature from deeper shadows. The teens froze, their hearts pounding as the cow, or the thing that masqueraded as one, rose unnaturally on its hind legs, towering over them with a menacing presence. Panic erupted as the creature chased them through the fields, its form blurring between beast and spectre, its bellows a grotesque parody of bovine grunts mixed with something far older and angrier. The youths scattered, screaming into the night, forever marked by the terror of what they had provoked. Those who returned spoke little of the incident, their eyes haunted by the memory. The story spread, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires and during late-night gatherings. Cow tipping was no longer seen as a harmless challenge, but as a dare with potentially dire consequences. To this day, the fields at the edge of that town remain untouched at night, the cows left to their peaceful slumber. For the locals know that some rural myths are better left untested, and that disturbing the natural order can awaken things best left asleep in the darkness. Tonight we explore the unsettling legend of Jarrell Bettis, also known as the Dog Boy, from Quitman, Arkansas. Relax and let this eerie tale of mystery and folklore guide you gently to sleep. The legend of Jarrell Bettis, often referred to as the Dog Boy, is an eerie urban tale that has circulated for years in Quitman, Arkansas. According to the legend, Bettis was a deeply troubled young boy with a dark and sinister streak. Locals recall strange behaviour from his early years, famous nickname, Dog Boy. As he grew older, the story surrounding Bettis became even more disturbing. It's said that he eventually turned his violent tendencies toward his own family, reportedly terrorizing his parents. He was rumoured to have kept his elderly parents essentially imprisoned in their home, where neighbours would occasionally hear strange noises or catch glimpses of unusual activity. Some claim that Bettis grew into an unnaturally large man, his physical size adding to the fear he instilled in those around him. The house where Bettis lived, located at 65 Mulberry Street, became infamous in the community. People began to believe that the home was haunted, not just by Bettis's malevolent presence, but by the spirits of the animals he had tortured over the years. After his parents passed away under mysterious circumstances, rumours swirled that their deaths were linked to his abusive behaviour. Though much of the story is based on hearsay and local gossip, the legend of Gerald Bettis persists in Quitman. The abandoned home became a focal point for ghost hunters and thrill seekers who claim that paranormal activity still occurs there. Whether fact or fiction, the tale of the Dog Boy remains a haunting part of the town's folklore, a chilling reminder of the blurred line between reality and myth. In the shadowy realm of Latin American folklore, a sinister whisper of the cucuy stirs unease during the darkest hours. Known as the malevolent counterpart to the benign boogeyman of other cultures, the cucuy is a creature of nightmares, thriving on the fears of both the young and old. This ghostly monster is no mere invention to coax children into obedience, but a terrifying spectre believed to lurk in the shadows of the night, waiting to snatch away those who dare defy the veil of night stillness. The legend of the cucuy has been passed down through generations, a chilling narrative that varies slightly from region to region, but maintains its core essence. The cucuy is a shapeless, shadowy figure, often depicted as a small, hunched being with glowing red eyes that peers through the darkness. It hides in closets, under beds, or in the dense foliage near homes, emerging only when the moon is but a faint glow against the black sky. Parents whisper tales of the cucuy to their children, warning them not to wander alone at night. The cucuy, they say, preys on the disobedient and the curious, those children who refuse to sleep when the night deepens, or who venture outside to explore the seductive mysteries of the dark. It is said that once the cucuy sets its sights on you, escape is nearly impossible. Its presence is always cloaked in the rustling of leaves or the soft creaks of a settling house, its breath a cold gust foretelling doom. Elders in the community speak of their own fearful encounters, of nights filled with inexplicable cold drafts and fleeting shadows seen from the corners of their eyes. They recount stories of friends long gone, spirited away by the cucuy, leaving behind nothing but a chilling silence and an unspoken warning to heed the boundaries set by the light. Some tales take a more gruesome turn, describing how the cucuy feeds on fear, drawing closer with each terrified heartbeat. The more you fear, the stronger it becomes. Its whisper, a sound like the dragging of chains in the depths of the unseen. Those who listen closely on windy nights might still hear the faint cries of its victims, a permanent echo of their eternal torment. To confront the cucuy is to face an ancient and manifestation of the terror of the unknown and the unseen. In the lore of Latin America, the kukui remains a potent symbol of the night's darkest reach, a spectre forever waiting in the shadowy fringes of fear. In the shadow-laden landscape of American folklore, few tales evoke the chill of the Crybaby Bridge. Across the United States, numerous bridges bear this macabre nickname, each story rooted in a haunting event so sorrowful that the echoes seem to transcend time itself. These structures, often decrepit and isolated, are united by the eerie phenomenon of phantom infant wails that pierce the stillness of the night. One such bridge looms on the outskirts of a small, weathered town, cloaked in the thick mists that rise from the river below. Local legend has it that many decades ago, a young mother, driven by despair and madness, threw her newborn child from the bridge into the icy waters beneath. They say she was consumed by grief and torment over her deed, and that her wails mingled with those of her child in a symphony of anguish. Overcome by remorse, she leapt to her own death, hoping in vain to join her child in the depths. Since that fateful night, those who dare to walk the bridge after dark report hearing the harrowing sounds of a baby's cries, so real and so close that they turn in desperation, searching for the child they can never find. Some also hear the ghostly lament of the mother, a mournful wail that drifts across the river and settles like a cold shroud upon the hearts of the listeners. The Crybaby Bridge has become a rite of passage for the local youth, a test of courage or foolhardiness. Teenagers gather in hushed groups, their voices low, as they dare one another to cross the bridge at midnight. Armed only with flashlights that cast long, ominous shadows, they step onto the creaking wood, each plank groaning under the weight of the grim history it bears. As they reach the centre, where the river runs darkest, the cries begin. At first, a soft whimpering, it soon swells into a crescendo of screams, so visceral that many flee in terror, swearing never to return. Others speak of seeing a spectral figure of a woman, her gown flowing and pale in the moonlight, her arms reaching out for the child she will never hold again. Cameras and phones, intended to capture proof, inexplicably fail, leaving only the memories of those haunted by what they have experienced. The Crybaby Bridge serves as a stark reminder of the past's grip on the present, its story passed down through generations as a chilling warning. It is a place where the boundary between this world and the next is thin, where sorrow and tragedy are etched into the very landscape, and the cries of the lost are never far from earshot. We journey into the misty woods of Bradley, where the sorrowful spirit of the Black Lady roams. Let her quiet footsteps guide you into a peaceful, restful sleep. The Black Lady of Bradley Woods is a haunting figure from English folklore, said to roam the dark and mysterious woods near the village of Bradley in Lincolnshire. This spectral presence has been a part of local legend for centuries, with many claiming to have caught glimpses of her wandering the woods, shrouded in sorrow and silence. Described as a tall, slender woman, dressed entirely in black, the Black Lady is most often seen wearing a long, flowing cloak with a hood that covers her face. Her appearances are always marked by an overwhelming sense of sadness and grief, as if she is forever searching for something or someone lost. Her skin is pale, and her eyes, when visible, are filled with an eternal sorrow that seems to pierce through those who encounter her. According to the most well-known version of the legend, the Black Lady was once a young woman during the medieval period who lived happily with her husband, a soldier, and their newborn child in a cottage near the woods, shattered when her husband was called away to fight in the wars. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but he never returned. Then, one tragic night, a group of soldiers reportedly attacked the village, killing many and abducting the young woman's child. Devastated by the loss of her family, the young mother wandered the woods, searching endlessly for her child, until her grief consumed her, and she eventually perished. From that moment on, her restless spirit is said to have remained bound to the woods, eternally searching for her lost baby. Locals claim that the Black Lady appears most often on misty evenings, her figure emerging from the shadows of the trees. Some say she will ask passers-by if they have seen her child, while others report that she simply stares, lost in her grief, before vanishing back into the darkness. Over the years, the legend of the Black Lady has served as a cautionary tale for children, warning them to stay away from the woods after dark. While many are skeptical, there are still those who believe in her presence, and stories of sightings continue to circulate. Whether real or imagined, the Black Lady of Bradley Woods remains a symbol of deep sorrow and eternal longing. Her tragic story lingers in the minds of those who hear it, casting a shadow of mystery and sadness over the quiet village of Bradley. James Dean's untimely death in 1955 left an eerie shadow over Hollywood, a legacy of rebellion and tragedy. But it was not just his passing that stirred the imaginations of millions. It was the dark legend surrounding his beloved Porsche 550 Spider, ominously nicknamed Little Bastard. The car, the very machine in which Dean met his end on a lonely California highway, would go on to become infamous in its own right, woven into a web of curses, accidents, and unexplained events that would haunt anyone who dared come near it. Dean, known for his fascination with speed, had poured his passion into the sleek silver Porsche, a car that felt like an extension of his own persona. Dangerous, alluring, and defiant. Friends warned him about the car, claiming it gave off a sinister aura, but Dean shrugged off their concerns. Some even said they'd had visions of his death behind his wheel. Yet, on September 30th, 1955, as Dean raced down Route 466, Little Bastard met its fate, colliding with another vehicle in a brutal accident that killed him instantly. But while Dean's life ended that day, the story of Little Bastard had only just begun. The wreckage of the car was carted off, twisted and mangled, a ghostly reminder of the tragedy. Yet, for some, the remnants held a dark allure. People began to scavenge parts from the Porsche, hoping to claim a piece of history. But they would soon realise that they had taken more than just a piece of metal. They had inherited a curse. The parts from Dean's little bastard seemed to carry with them a thirst for destruction, a dark legacy that brought disaster upon any who dared touch it. The first victim was a mechanic who purchased the car's engine and installed it into his own race car. During his first race with the engine, he lost control, careening off the track and meeting his death in a fiery crash. Another racer, who had taken the transmission from Dean's Porsche, suffered a near-identical fate, his vehicle flipping violently on a seemingly safe track. Both men perished, their deaths eerily mirroring Dean's own tragic end, as if the spirit of little bastard demanded more lives. Other parts of the car met equally chilling fates. 2 tyres taken from the Porsche blew out simultaneously, causing the driver's car to swerve off the road and overturn, leaving him gravely injured. Those who witnessed the crash claimed that the tyres had seemed perfectly fine beforehand, as if they'd been sabotaged by an unseen force. Another story tells of a physician who purchased the Porsche's blood-stained seats, hoping to restore them, only to find his home inexplicably caught in a blaze soon after, destroying not only the seats, but his life's belongings. The fire's cause was never determined. The twisted remains of Little Bastard were eventually purchased by car customizer George Barris, who intended to display it as a cautionary symbol. But even as a lifeless display, the Porsche continued its path of destruction. In one instance, it fell off its display stand and crushed a nearby bystander's legs. Another time, it slipped loose from its moorings while being transported and killed a truck driver in a horrific accident. It was as if the car itself resented being confined, lashing out at anyone who dared contain it. The final mystery came in 1960, when Little Bastard was in transit to a museum exhibit. Somewhere along the journey, the cursed wreck simply vanished. No one could account for its disappearance, and to this day, Little Bastard remains lost, its twisted metal and dark history dissolved into thin air. Rumours abound, with some believing the car escaped to fulfill its unholy mission, others saying it was buried to rid the world of its curse, and a few even speculating that it reappears now and then, hidden in a collector's vault, waiting to be unleashed once more. The tale of Little Bastard endures, an urban legend of fear and fascination. For those who hear it, there's an uneasy question. Could a machine be haunted, possessed by the spirit of its past? In the dead of night, there's a number whispered among those brave, or foolish, enough to try. 999-9999. According to the legend, if you dial this number after midnight, an eerie voice on the other end will answer, ready to grant your deepest, darkest wish. But there's a catch. Whatever you ask for will come true, but your life will be the price. The legend has it that the voice on the other end is patient, almost amused, as if it's heard countless desperate pleas before. You might hear soft breathing or the faint sound of something shifting, waiting for you to speak your desire. Ask for fame, fortune, or revenge, and it's granted, swift and precise. But the moment your wish is fulfilled, your fate is sealed. Witnesses claim that people who dared to make the call found themselves in strange, terrifying accidents shortly after, as if some unseen force had come to collect their due. Stories tell of a girl who dialed the number to become the most popular student in school, still on the screen. Another tale recounts a young man who asked for unimaginable wealth, only to be discovered lifeless in his luxury apartment just days later, the phone's last call pointing to that same cursed number. In 2002, the legend inspired a horror film, 9999999, where the cursed number brings terror to those who dare to test its power. Even today, some thrill seekers and skeptics dial 9999999 after midnight, hoping to prove the legend false. But as the silence stretches on and the dial tone fades, some swear they hear a faint voice asking softly, "What is your wish?" Welcome to our soothing journey into the mysterious world of urban legends. Tonight, we'll explore the haunting tale of the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall, a story that whispers through the ages. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall is one of the most famous ghost stories in England, originating from the picturesque Raynham Hall in Norfolk. This legend captures the imagination of those fascinated by the supernatural and the unexplained. Raynham Hall, built in the early 18th century, was the ancestral home of the Townshend family. It is a grand estate characterised by its stunning architecture and beautiful grounds, but it also harbours a chilling tale of loss and lingering spirits. The story of the Brown Lady is closely linked to Lady Dorothy Walpole, the sister of the first Prime Minister, Sir Robert Walpole. It is said that she married Charles Townshend, a man known for his volatile temperament. The couple's marriage was fraught with difficulties, leading to tragedy and heartbreak. According to legend, Lady Dorothy fell in love with another man, which enraged her husband. In a fit of jealousy, Townshend confined her to Raynham Hall, where she was said to have lived in isolation for many years. Her suffering took a toll on her health, and it is believed that she eventually died of despair. Some accounts suggest that she was buried in a secret location, leading to speculation about a restless spirit haunting the halls of the estate. The haunting began to capture public attention in the early 20th century, when two photographers, including Captain Hubert Provat, visited Raynham allowing guests to delve into the haunting narrative that lingers in the air. In the quiet, wooded landscape of Wisconsin, there's a chilling mystery that lingers in whispers and half-forgotten memories. According to legend, there once was a town named Doveland, a small, close-knit community with friendly neighbours and quiet streets. Yet, by the early 1990s, Doveland had disappeared without a trace. Not merely abandoned or decayed, but entirely erased, as if it had never existed. Today, there are no maps, no records, not even a mention of it in official documents. Yet, people swear they remember it, and others carry fragments of its memory in objects and eerie recollections. Locals and former residents insist they once visited or even lived in Doveland. They recall the roads, the town square, the shops, and the lake that glistened under summer skies. Some claim they have souvenirs, t-shirts, postcards, or even keychains that bear the name Doveland, Wisconsin. These objects are rare, kept like relics, though the origins are lost and faded, as if each one were a relic from a place beyond reach. Those who find themselves in possession of these objects describe an uneasy feeling, as if they hold a piece of something that wasn't meant to be remembered. The most unnerving aspect of the legend is that no one seems to agree on what happened to Doveland. Some say it was the result of a government experiment gone wrong, a project that shattered the fabric of reality itself. Others whisper about a tragedy so horrific that the town was erased to protect outsiders from its dark secrets. And still, there are those who believe Doveland simply slipped through a crack in time, disappearing into another dimension, leaving only the faintest of imprints in our world. Strangers passing through the area where Doveland once stood often report feeling lost or uneasy, as if they're being watched by something unseen. There are other eerie reports as well. Travellers say that on certain nights they've seen faint lights through the trees and heard the distant sounds of music and laughter, as though a town was still there, celebrating in the darkness. Some even say they've glimpsed ghostly figures in the shadows, walking along non-existent streets, whispering words that dissolve in the wind. People who claim to have lived in Doveland share an unsettling commonality. They all experience recurring dreams of returning to the town, walking familiar streets, greeted by familiar faces, faces they now cannot remember. They wake with a sense of deep loss, as if a part of themselves was left behind in that town that no longer exists. Strangers who visit the region sometimes describe feeling a magnetic pull to a place that doesn't appear on any map, or an intense sense of déjà vu, like they've stepped into a place they once knew but cannot recall. Doveland, Wisconsin remains an enigma, a town lost to time or perhaps to something far darker. Its absence lingers like a wound, and those who remember it are left with the eerie feeling that a piece of reality has slipped away, taking with it a slice of their own lives. The mystery of Doveland hangs like a shadow over the region, a strange void that beckons to those who seek it, yet warns of dangers hidden within forgotten places. For those who dare to remember or seek to uncover its secrets, there's always the haunting question: what happens to those who dig too deep into a place that was never meant to be found? In the quiet town of Dover, Massachusetts, nestled among winding roads and dense woods, a terrifying legend emerged over 2 nights in April 1977. It was here, in the dark shadows and eerie silence, that a creature known as the Dover Demon first appeared, a sight so chilling that its image still haunts those who witnessed it, and its legend has woven itself into the fabric of local lore. On the night of April 21st, 3 teenagers were driving along Farm Street when one of them, a 17-year-old named Bill Bartlett, caught sight of something unusual at the edge of his headlights. At first, he thought it was a small animal crouched along a stone wall, but But as he focused, he realised this was no animal. Staring back at him was a figure unlike anything he'd ever seen. Small, barely 4 feet tall, with a large bulbous head, too big for its thin, fragile-looking body. Its skin was a strange, pale, almost chalky colour, and it had long, thin limbs that seemed unsettlingly out of proportion. The most disturbing detail, however, was its eyes. Large, glowing orange orbs that seemed to reflect back the light, piercing and unnatural, as if they were staring straight into his soul. Bartlett froze, watching as the creature clung to the rocks with an almost human grasp, its long fingers wrapping around the stones like a spider's legs. For a brief moment, the two locked eyes, and an intense wave of fear washed over him. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the creature scuttled into the woods, vanishing into the night. Shaken, Bartlett told his friends about the encounter, but it didn't end there. The very next night, another sighting occurred, this time by a 15-year-old boy named John Baxter, who was walking home along Miller Hill Road. He described seeing a similar creature standing by the trees, watching him with those same haunting eyes. Baxter tried to approach, but the figure slipped into the shadows, melting into the woods with an unnatural silence. Terrified, Baxter fled, convinced he'd encountered something otherworldly. The following night, yet another teenager, Abby Brabham, reported seeing the same creature while driving near Springdale Avenue. Her description matched the others. An eerily pale, thin figure with a head too large for its body and those unforgettably large glowing eyes. By now, the sightings had spread through the small town, sending chills through the community and sparking wild speculation. Over time, the stories evolved, with locals suggesting all kinds of explanations. Some believed it was an alien, a visitor from another world, accidentally stranded in Dover, while others were certain it was some undiscovered creature lurking in the New England woods. Paranormal enthusiasts speculated that it was a being from another dimension, slipping in and out of our reality, leaving only fleeting glimpses and unsettling memories. But for those who saw it, the Dover demon was real, a creature they could never unsee. The sighting sparked fear, yet a morbid curiosity lingered. Some residents ventured into the woods with flashlights, hoping to catch a glimpse of the creature, but the Dover demon never showed itself again. It had left its mark, a shadow of dread that hung over Dover's quiet streets, yet its absence only deepened the mystery. Skeptics dismissed the encounters as the result of overactive imaginations or youthful hysteria, but those who witnessed it knew the fear was real, a gut-wrenching terror that could not be explained away. To this day, the Dover demon remains a chilling mystery, an enigma that defies explanation. Sightings have faded, but the story endures, passed down through generations as a ghostly reminder of something that walked among them, something that did not belong. The children of Dover grow up hearing the legend, warned not to wander too far into the woods at night, for fear of encountering the creature with the orange eyes. And on dark, moonless nights, some claim they still see strange shapes moving at the edge of the forest, a fleeting shadow with glowing eyes that vanish the moment you try to focus on them, whether it was a visitor from another realm or simply a trick of the dark. The Dover demon has carved its place in the dark folklore of Massachusetts, a ghostly figure forever haunting the wooded paths of Dover. Those who walk these paths feel a chill in the air, an unshakable feeling that something is watching, waiting just beyond sight, with hollow eyes and a chilling stare that pierces through the night. The Dover demon may be gone, but his legend lives on, a tale of terror and mystery, warning all who listen. Sometimes the darkness holds more than shadows, and some creatures are never meant to be seen. Tonight, let me guide you into the shadows of ancient Spain, where the chilling legend of the Castilian lisp unfolds. Relax, close your eyes, and let the whispers of history lull you to sleep. In the dark corners of Spain's forgotten history, a chilling tale has lingered for centuries, whispered among locals and passed down from generation to generation. It's the legend of the Castilian lisp, a haunting story that, while discredited by scholars, continues to send shivers down the spines of those who hear it. Long ago, in a time when kings ruled with an iron fist and the boundaries between myth and reality were blurred, there was a king unlike any other. His name has been lost to the shadows of time, but his affliction, an unmistakable lisp, would echo across Spain, leaving a trail of fear and confusion in its wake. The king's speech was strange, almost inhuman, as though something had cursed his very words. His voice carried an eerie sibilance, a sound that cut through the air like the hiss of a snake. The court, terrified of the king's wrath, dared not speak of his speech defect, but whispers of dark magic and ancient curses spread beyond the castle walls, infecting the imagination of the populace. It was said that the king's lisp was no mere quirk of speech, but the result of a sinister pact made with forces beyond this world. Some claimed he had bargained with a demon for power, and in return, his tongue was twisted, forcing him to speak in a way that no one else could. Others believed that a vengeful witch had cursed him, condemning his voice to forever sound as though it were tethered to the underworld. As the legend goes, the king was a man of great influence, and no one dared to correct his speech. Instead, out of fear, the courtiers and nobles began to mimic the king's pronunciation. His strange lisp spread like a disease, infecting the tongues of those who sought to curry favour with the crown. Soon, it was said, the entire kingdom spoke as their king did, their voices carrying the cursed sound of the theatre. The streets echoed with the eerie lisp, a constant reminder of the dark secret lurking in Spain's past. Children grew up speaking the language of the damned, unaware of the malevolent forces that had shaped their words. Though historians have debunked this tale as pure fantasy, the legend persists, a chilling reminder of how even the most benign of sounds can carry with them the weight of a curse. The next time you hear the soft hiss of a theatre in Spanish speech, remember the tale of the cursed king and wonder what dark power still lingers behind the sound. On the eerie evening of September the 20th, 1965, in the quiet seaside town of Felixstowe, England, a terrifying event unfolded, one that would become known as the legend of the Felixstowe fire demon. Witnesses claimed to have seen something unnatural that night, an encounter so horrifying that it would haunt the town's memory for years to come. It began with strange lights in the sky. Around midnight, residents reported seeing glowing red and orange orbs floating above the coastline, moving with unnatural speed and precision. These lights were unlike any aircraft known at the time, pulsing with a fiery intensity that seemed almost alive. But it wasn't the lights that struck fear into the hearts of Felixstowe's residents. It was what came next. A young couple, drawn by the unusual lights, ventured closer to the shore. As they approached, a figure emerged from the darkness, illuminated by the fiery glow. They described it as a tall, humanoid being, yet something was horribly wrong. The creature's body seemed to shimmer with a heat wave-like distortion, as though it was surrounded by invisible flames. Its eyes were fiery embers, burning with a malevolent red glow that seemed to pierce straight into their souls. The couple stood frozen as the entity approached, its movements slow and deliberate, almost predatory. A faint crackling sound, like the hiss hiss of burning coals filled the air, and the air around them grew stiflingly hot. The creature stretched out a long, claw-like hand, and in that moment the couple fled, overwhelmed by an overwhelming sense of dread. They ran through the darkened streets, their minds reeling from what they'd just encountered. Other townspeople reported feeling an inexplicable heat that night, even inside their homes, as if the fire demon had cast a spell of warmth across the entire town. Some claimed that the creature had left scorched footprints along the beach, deep impressions jarred into the sand that no waves could wash away. But by morning, there was no trace of the creature, only the lingering terror of its fiery gaze and the charred marks left in its wake. Local authorities dismissed the event, attributing the lights to atmospheric phenomena and the creature to the overactive imaginations of frightened witnesses. But those who saw the Felixstowe fire demon knew the truth. A being from another world, forged in fire, had stepped into their world, leaving a scar in Felixstowe's memory that would never fade. Today, the legend of the Felixstowe fire demon endures, a chilling reminder that some mysteries defy explanation. On stormy nights, when the sea crashes against the shore, residents sometimes claim to see a fiery glow flickering in the distance, as if the fire demon still haunts the coast, waiting to emerge from the shadows once again. In the shadows of Terrell, Texas, whispers and warnings have woven a chilling legend through the generations, a tale that clings to the fringes of nightmare and reality. They call her the Candy Lady, but behind the innocuous name lurks a sinister spectre named Clara Crane, whose story has haunted the town for over a century. The legend began in the early 1900s, when children in Terrell started to vanish without a trace. Desperate parents scoured the land, dredging the creeks and combing through the thickets, but none could unearth any sign of their missing offspring. As the community groped for answers, a disturbing pattern emerged. Children reported finding candies on their windowsills, pieces of caramels wrapped in crinkling parchment paper, with tiny notes urging them to come out and play. The notes were always signed with a simple, eerie C. Whispered tales from older folks traced the unsettling gifts back to Clara Crane, a woman once known among the townsfolk. Clara, they said, had lived on the fringes of Terrell, a reclusive and peculiar widow, whose only solace after the death of her abusive husband was her young daughter. Her life spiraled into darkness when her daughter mysteriously died, with local gossip suggesting foul play. The town shunned her, whispering that she had gone mad with grief, her mind twisted by the tragedy. Some said she blamed the children of Terrell for her loss, believing they had enticed her daughter into some fatal mischief. After her daughter's death, Clara vanished into obscurity, leaving only the decrepit shell of her home as a testament to her existence. But the story of the Candy Lady did not end with her disappearance. It was as if her spirit, unquelled by death or reason, continued to seek vengeance. The candies kept appearing, each piece an eerie invitation from beyond the grave. The most unsettling accounts involve letters found with the older children, written as if Clara herself were conversing with them from the shadows. These letters were more sinister, promising the children their fill of sweets in life and in death. It was as if Clara was crafting a a silhouette of a woman in a tattered gown, her face obscured by the darkness. They said it was Clara, watching, waiting for her next child to claim. Those who dared to venture too close to the woods at night reported hearing the soft, unsettling melody of a lullaby drifting through the trees, only to be swallowed up by the suffocating silence of the unseen. To this day, the legend of Clara Crane, the Candy Lady, lingers in the air of Tyrrell like a thick fog. Parents tightly secure their windows, wary of the old tale, and remind their children to steer clear of the sweets that might appear unbidden. As Halloween approaches each year, the tension in the town tightens, a collective memory of the loss stirring in the hearts of those who remember. And so, the community watches and waits, the legend of Clara Crane etched deep in their bones, a spectral reminder that some tales are too chilling to be forgotten, and some spirits too vengeful to rest. In the desolate hills of Bridgewater Corners, Vermont, a chilling legend whispers through the icy winds. The story of the frozen hill people, a tale as bleak as the winters that shroud the region. It begins on December 21st, 1887, a winter so cruel that it buried the hills under an unforgiving blanket of snow and ice, sealing off a poor family of hill farmers from the rest of the world. What happened in their isolated home during those endless frigid nights remains one of Vermont's darkest mysteries. The family, so impoverished they could barely afford to feed themselves, was known for their reclusive nature. They lived high in the hills, where even the hardiest dared not venture during winter's peak. As the snow piled higher, cutting them off completely, rumours spread in the nearby towns. Weeks passed with no sign of life from their cabin, no smoke curling from the chimney, no tracks in the snow. The silence was as suffocating as the frost. When the thaw finally came, a few brave townsfolk ventured to the cabin, fearing the worst. What they found chilled them to their very cores. The family's bodies were discovered, eerily preserved in the ice, frozen in unnatural positions. Their eyes, wide open, seemed to stare with an unsettling awareness, as if they had seen something horrific in their final moments. The mother sat upright in her chair, her hands clasped as if in prayer, her frozen face twisted in terror. The children were found huddled together in a corner, their mouths agape in silent screams. And the father, he was by the door, his hands bloodied, as if clawing at the wood in a desperate attempt to escape. But what truly horrified the townsfolk were the signs that something far darker had transpired. Strange symbols had been scratched into the walls, crude and jagged, as if made in a frenzy. Furniture was overturned, and strange claw-like marks marred the floor, leading to the snow-covered woods behind the cabin. Some claimed they could feel an oppressive presence in the room, an icy chill that wasn't from the weather. The legend grew, with whispers that the family had summoned something during their isolation, something ancient